Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. You chose to be at a city council meeting tonight. It's Monday, October 7th, 2019. Thank you for being here. We'll start this meeting with a roll call and determination of quorum.
Nordstrom, Modrick, Roberts, Stroman, Armstrong, Lewis, Lehman, Drury, Evans, Drew. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. And now we're going to have our invocation, and that'll be by Lisa Allison from the Cornerstone Rescue Mission. And following the invocation, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. And as long as we're talking about the Pledge of Allegiance, let's recognize our Boy Scout Troop 72 in the back here. These are the folks we've all seen at Walmart for the last month. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here to give the invocation tonight, and I want to thank all of you. And looks like we have a very crowded house, and so I'm going to be very brief. So if you'd like to bow your head in prayer. Heavenly Father, we just come before you now, and I just thank you for everybody in this room. I just thank you for the city council members and the mayor and all of the other appointed and elected officials that serve this city. Being a public servant is a difficult calling at times. It's humbling, it's honorable, but it's also good in so many ways. And I just thank you that they have answered this call and that they're willing to make difficult decisions for this city, that they're willing to stand up for what is right and to look at the big picture. And I just ask that you would bless all of them, bless their families, bless their businesses, protect and keep them. And I also want to thank you for the fire department and the police department. They give so much, Father, and we just ask that you would just protect them and just keep them safe, that they can go home to their families night after night. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. And now on to the adoption of the agenda. This is a time when the city council members can adopt the agenda as written, or they can make alterations or additions to it. So would there be a motion? Motion to approve by Modrick and second by Armstrong for adoption of the agenda. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. Okay, now we have some awards and recognitions. We're going to start with some employee awards and recognitions, and we'll call up first our Parks and Rec Director, Jeff Biegler, to introduce Amy Graves.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Jeff Biegler, Parks and Recreation Director. We're here this evening to present Amy Graves with her certificate for 30 years of service with the City of Rapid City. Amy was hired back in 1989 as a parking meter attendant. And she was then promoted and transferred to the City Cashier's office in 1991, where she then became an accounts clerk too. She continued with the Finance Department until August of 2004. Where she then transferred to the Attorney's Office to become Administrative Secretary for the City Attorney's Office. We were lucky enough at Parks and Recreation to have Amy transfer to our department in April of 2012, and she is our Administrative Secretary with our department. Amy's an essential component of our department. She is the first smiling face you see when you walk in the morning. She's the first smiling voice you hear when you call into our department. She really makes it a pleasure to come to work every day. And she has one of the toughest jobs in the department, and that is having to deal with our park maintenance staff. There's quite a number of individuals there, and they all just treat her with the utmost respect. She is a consummate professional. We thoroughly enjoy having her there, and I'm very pleased to be here this evening to award her with this recognition.
Ed? Oh, Dan? Oh, he's hiding. Dan Kuhn from Public Works Department, here to introduce Jeff Barber.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm Dan Kuhn. I'm the Assistant Public Works Director for the City of Rapid City. I first met Jeff not long after I started with the City of Rapid City. At the time, he was an operator at our material recovery facility, and since then, he moved up to a crew chief, and since 2015, Jeff has been the landfill supervisor, taking care of the day-to-day operation of our landfill out at our solid waste facility. Jeff is one of those salt-of-the-earth kind of guys that is very good to work with and even more pleasant to be around. I don't know how many times in meetings or discussing something with Jeff, he just says, yep, we'll make her work or we'll get her done. And so Jeff, from me and on behalf of the citizens of Rapid City, thank you for your 20 years of service, of making it work and just getting her done. And my question to you is, can we get 20 more? All right.
I'll have Assistant Fire Chief Jason Culberson come up and introduce the next employee for 20 years of service, Jeff Haberstroh.
Good evening. I just want to be the first to say congratulations on 20 years well spent. Jeff is stationed up at Station 4, which is the Southside Station near Rapid City Regional Hospital. Along with doing fire response, ambulances, they have 2 ambulances, brush truck, fire truck, also specialty station in Decon. Jeff's been up there for many years. I've worked in or with and around Jeff for the last 20 years. I have a couple more than he does, but at this point. And he's always been there. Staple of Station 4, the kind of employee that every employer would love to have, because he's there. He's there to help each and every one of us, help each one of those employees that comes out of Station 4 and each one of those guys that has to learn about Decon. He's the guy to talk to. So congratulations, Jeff. And I guess I'll ask the same question. Can we get 20 more out of you? Congratulations, Jeff.
Congratulations. Now the Rapid City Police Department has a few folks to recognize. So we have Police Chief Carl Jageris.
Thank you, Mayor. If I could have Sergeant Chris Hall, Senior Officer Rich Holt, and Senior Officer Kyle Akers come up, please. So we are very fortunate to be celebrating 100 years of service tonight at the Rapid City Police Department. Missing from our crew is Captain John Olson, who we've sent for some remedial training. Not really remedial, but we sent him to some training. And so each of the 4 officers have a total of 20 25 years each, which is a major milestone in a law enforcement career today, and it's becoming less and less the norm to spend a lengthy amount of time in a career, which we are benefiting greatly from because each of these officers has a high skill level in their own way. Each is an individual expert in different areas. Senior Officer Rich Holt is currently working the night shift, so we can all sleep well, knowing that he's out there and can clear a bar on his own if he needs to. And Sergeant Chris Hall is our training administrator, and he's keeping track of all of our new hires that are in various phases of training, whether they're at the academy and peer or in our field training program, and he's just doing a great job being a mentor to the next generation of police officers. And Senior Officer Kyle Akers is just extremely consistent, calm, and he currently works shift 1, the day shift, which is a very busy time of the day as well, and always providing exceptional service. Honestly, I think there must be a correlation between achieving 25 years of service and doing an exceptional job, because I've had 0 complaints that I can think of on any of our 4 25-year officers. So, and I will also just go off the program for just a second and acknowledge Lieutenant Scott Sitz in the back corner of the room is celebrating 15 years of service today. So we have a total of 115 years of service that we're celebrating. So congratulations to each of you, and would any of you like to speak? Chris's mom should come up too. Right, the Akers family. All right, congrats to everybody.
Formation there. There you go. Thanks, you guys. And next on the agenda, we have the Sustainability Award, and I would invite the members of the Sustainability Committee to come forward and introduce their recipients.
Good Good evening, everyone. My name is Lisanne Zeller, and I'm the current chair of the Rapid City Standing Committee on Sustainability. We are here tonight and pleased to be presenting the October 2019 Sustainability Award to Fork Real Community Cafe. Sustainability awards are presented to projects, businesses, or organizations that contribute to improving the social, environmental, and/or economic sustainability of Rapid City, in which Fork Real Community Cafe was nominated for doing all three. Fork Real is a nonprofit community cafe with a mission to build community using food and conversation through a pay-what-you-can cafe model. They serve people from all walks of life, farm-to-table meals in a welcoming environment. The pay-what-you-can concept allows customers a variety of options to pay for a meal, including paying the value of a meal, paying it forward by helping to pay for someone else's meal, or volunteering in exchange for a meal. In particular, Fork Real Community Cafe is being given a sustainability award for their use of local seasonal foods from area community gardens and individuals, their efforts to minimize food waste, and as I found out tonight, reuse building materials. I didn't even know about that. Promotion of community involvement through the use of volunteers to operate Fork Real, and their model of providing food and meals to all individuals regardless of their ability to pay, thereby helping to build a more inclusive community. Fork Real is open to the public for lunch Monday through Friday and is located at 324 St. Joseph Street near downtown Rapid City across from the courthouse. On a personal note, I recommend the cheesecake. It's always fabulous. They have the most interesting flavors. Yep. Accepting the award tonight are Rhonda and David Piercy, founders of Fork Real Community Cafe. So thank
you. We don't have a speech prepared, but we do want to just thank, it really was a community that comes together between the garden as well as the recycled material from volunteers who come in, from inmates that we use through the community service, from connections. So Jason Solomon is not here. Our first connection, that connection went to Lisa, and then our connection with the mayor. And so just the community coming together and handoffs and just sharing who we are and bringing everyone together using food. We do conversation, and we just welcome everyone who comes to the doors. I hope that, I know some of you left, but anyone that received a award for this evening, I'd love for you to come in, and lunch is on us. We are also open on Sunday from 11 to 2 for family-style dinners, and you may sit next to someone you know, someone you like, or someone you don't know, or someone you don't like. Thank you. And thank you, the Sustainability Committee.
Scott, would you come up? Scott Ingman from Black Hills Area Habitat. Anybody else you need to bring up? Okay. Well, folks, we're going to talk about World Habitat Day. And with me here is Scott Ingman from Black Hills Area Habitat, who will have a few remarks, but I have an executive proclamation to read first. whereas more than 109,000 individuals live below the poverty line in South Dakota in 2018, and 3,500 affordable homes are needed in the Rapid City area, and whereas Black Hills Area Habitat for Humanity has served more than 570 individuals through affordable housing solutions and will continue to address the lack of decent housing around the world while reducing environmental impact by recycling building materials through habitat restores. And whereas secure tenure not only facilitates opportunities for health improvement, civic engagement, investment, and wealth accumulation, but also provides a source of dignity and respect and serves as a basis for the pursuit of other rights. And whereas the United Nations General Assembly has declared the first Monday in October as World Habitat Day, a time to unite in a worldwide effort to promote policies to ensure adequate shelter for all. By raising awareness and advocating for universal, decent housing, we can change the system that reinforce poverty housing and make affordable homes a reality for all. Now, therefore, I, Steve Allender, Mayor of Rapid City, South Dakota, do hereby designate October 7th, 2019 as World Habitat Day in Rapid City and encourage all citizens to work toward the elimination of inadequate housing. Scott?
I will be as brief as I can be. I do have some written comments that I wanted to share. More than 30 years ago, the United Nations came together with the General Assembly to take the important step to promote the idea that everyone deserves a decent place to live, and by declaring the first Monday in October World Habitat Day. And thank you, Mayor and council members, for supporting that. As you know, every year Habitat joins our partners around the world to rededicate ourselves to recognize the basic right for achieving affordable home ownership and adequate shelter. We ask everyone to join together as one global network in communicating the message that every one of us deserves the opportunity for a better future, and that a decent place to live can remove barriers to opportunity, health, and success that might have been part of a family's life for years, and in many cases, for generations. To succeed in our lifetime, we must promote smart policies that advance access to adequate, affordable housing and include inclusionary zoning as well. A recent study indicates a need for 3,500 more affordable homes that the mayor's proclamation referred to, and that was from the Black Hills Knowledge Network study. That's about a $560 million challenge for our community, and it's going to help some of the 25% of our Rapid City residents who are cost-burdened by housing. By that I mean paying more than 50% of their gross monthly income just on housing. We've housed teachers, policemen, nurses, insurance agents, construction workers, waitresses, ministers, veterans, and we have a waiting list of 149 families for Habitat right now. In Rapid City alone, our families they contribute about $1 million in property tax to the county and the city every 4 years as they continue to make their tax payments on their homes. Having just completed the Garfield Green project, and I appreciate some of our council members who came to our event on Saturday, we repurposed the old school, and we now have 20 new families living in the Garfield neighborhood. But we aim to serve an additional 150 families over the next 5 years here in Rapid City. And we look forward to working with the city on that, so thank you.
Okay, moving on with the agenda. We're on to general public comment. There are no speaker request forms here, but Darla Drew from the City Council would like to have a moment of privilege. Darla Drew.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Today I saw a beautiful exercise in democracy in our community, and that was the rally that started at Memorial Park and then came to City Hall. I would guess there was about 200 to 300 people that were exercising their right to protest what they feel is an injustice in our environmental protection. I thought it was great because, first of all, it was done at the very last minute. You know, we didn't have a lot of time to prepare for this, and the city rose to that. The police were out in full force, making sure that everyone was safe. Regardless of your opinion as to how you come down on this issue, everyone does have a right to this opinion, and they gathered peacefully. And as you know, Greta Thunberg, the new voice for youth in the environmental war for our planet, was one of the speakers, as well as Dakota Iron Eyes, and they both were incredibly eloquent and very focused young speakers. It reminded me of when I was young back before the Civil War. Anyway, but you know, in the 70s, we had young people that came up and spoke and were heard because we would not be denied. And that is something that I saw today. And I also saw probably a crowd of 60 to 70% American Indian Lakota people that came forward to voice their opinions to protect Mother Earth. And I appreciated that as well. Our president, our council president, Laura Armstrong, spoke extremely eloquently to the crowd. She was well received. They loved her. Not to say that she didn't have a little bit of trepidation before she hit that stage, but I've got to say that she brought it home and welcomed our youth and welcomed people with opinions on our environment to come to City Hall and talk to us about it. And right now I'm going to just defer a little bit to Laura if she has any comments on this. But I just had to say something because we were on the world stage today, and I think we showed very well. And I think we did ourselves a great honor by having our council represented. Thank you.
Okay, Laura Armstrong.
Thank you, Mrs. Drew. Those are very good words, and I will just dovetail off of that. It was a remarkable event, and I was very proud to be in Rapid City today. It was peaceful, it was positive, it was productive, and it was very powerful. And I just want to extend a thank you to the Rapid City Police Department. They kept everybody safe. The protesters, the spectators, even the traffic flowed quite nicely, so thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And now moving on the agenda, non-public hearing items 4 through 50. We have no speaker requests on these items, so we'll go to consent items 4 through 44. Would the council like to remove any of these items or offer a motion to approve them all?
No. Don't need to do that.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Evans to pull item 44, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Any other motions to pull them? If not, we have a motion to approve from Lewis. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Armstrong. All in favor of approving the consent items with the exception of 44, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Item 44, authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign the professional services agreement for the 6th and Omaha Street pedestrian and bicycle crossing study and 6th Street Promenade Corridor Master Plan with Felsberg, Holt, and Ulevig in an amount not to exceed $125,097. Bill Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this item has received quite a bit of comment in the paper. I know that at a funeral this morning, I received 3 or 4 comments about it. So just for some information dispersal, I'd like to know exactly where the money for this comes from, how the budget is decided upon, and then the end result, what will that particular product be when it is presented. So I think, Mr. Young, are you the one that could give us some information?
Yes, I'll start off, and then I'll end up turning some time over to Kip Harrington, our transportation planner. So budgetarily, the funds for this come largely from federal funds that are given to our MPO. So I believe it's 82%. So if you look at that total amount, that's about 102,000 of that amount is not coming from Rapid City. So if we were to use the remaining 20,000 for potholes, I suppose we could cover a few of them. But the funding for this is not available for other types of programs such as filling potholes, which I have noticed is a comment that seems to be prevalent out there. This is just part of the process that we've been underway for the last couple of years, studying the downtown area and trying to make improvements through downtown and connecting downtown in a better way to Memorial Park and the Civic Center. We have a crosswalk that is not effective nor efficient, and therefore we do not have good connection between downtown and the Memorial Park and Civic Center. We need to have that, especially as we increase events and traffic opportunities between those two areas, as with the new arena coming. So this is also part of an overall larger vision to improve the entire corridor of 6th Street. So if we take it all the way up to the Civic Center on the north end and down to the high school and Performing Arts Center on the south end, we're looking at several opportunities to make improvements to a better pedestrian corridor through that entire area with more gathering places and more beautification projects. So it's part of a larger project, but the most important function to make this work is to have a better crossing over Omaha. So that's the reason we did find some good funding for that through the federal funds. Further questions in detail? I've got Kip Harrington here.
Mr. Young, just for, you mentioned the MPO, would you explain that?
Metropolitan Planning Organization. So our long-range planning division acts as the MPO, or Metropolitan Planning Organization, for the Rapid City general area or metropolitan area. So we do transportation planning for up into Meade County, through the entire area outside of Rapid City that has transportation connections into the city.
Okay, thank you. And back to Bill Evans.
Well, you mentioned the word inefficient, and I am curious, since the crossing was just redone a couple of years ago, 6 years ago, has it changed? I know that the promenade has been a huge investment, and that's got to be figured into any future plans. And I'd certainly, anything that they come up with for a solution, and I understand in major cities, I've used a lot of, crossover pedestrian bridges and whatnot, and I want to make sure that that investment in the, the promenade is not wasted and it's thoroughly considered so that we don't have two things fighting.
Right. And so therefore the purpose for a study that can look at the best ways of accomplishing that. So the whole idea is to separate the vehicular from the pedestrian traffic as we cross Omaha, so there can be free flow pedestrian traffic going over an underpass of Omaha. That's the concept we're working with right now.
Okay, thank you.
Darla Drew.
Thank you. I don't know if my questions are for Ken or for Kip, but I guess I'll go with Ken. So when we're looking at the Felsberg, Holt, and Julevig group, are they local? Are they a local group?
They're out of Denver, I believe. We have worked with them on other studies.
And we felt there was no one here in Rapid City that was capable of this?
We announced, I'll let Kip address this, but while he's coming up, I do know that we had some difficulties getting responses to our request for proposal.
This was a constituent question, so I'm going to get it answered.
Hi, Kip Harrington, Long Range Planning. Yes, Mr. Young is correct. We put out a request for proposals for this project. Felsberg, Holt, and Ulevig was the only respondent to that request for proposals. And they came within our budget, and they're a very well-qualified firm. We've worked with them in the past. And in addition, they are partnering with a local firm, Stanley Design Group, to do some of their work on the ground here. So a portion of that contract will stay local and go to the Stanley Design Group. I think it's about 20% of that contract will stay here in Rapid City, and the rest goes to that Felsberg, Holt, and Ulevig firm.
I like to know that there's a local voice involved in these kinds of projects. Now, is Omaha the purview of the South Dakota Department of Transportation, or can we go forward with something like this without including them in these kinds of decisions? I mean, if you're going for a bridge, I mean, it would seem to me that we have to work very closely with the state.
We do work very closely with the state. Omaha Street is also known as South Dakota Highway 44. We've had some preliminary conversations with the South Dakota Department of Transportation. Our local region office has done some real preliminary profile work to determine that this may be feasible just from a grade standpoint and what we might be looking at. But the purpose of the study is to figure out, is it actually feasible? What effects will it have on traffic if we were to close down the 6th and Omaha intersection to vehicle traffic? What would that do to our transit system? How would that affect everything, and how we can make those bike and ped connections as well? And so that's what the purpose of this study is, to take a look at all those issues.
Closing that intersection is an option in some way?
Well, if we want to separate the pedestrians from the vehicles, we have to make a grade separation. So if we were to build, say, just a plain old pedestrian overpass, the issue with those is a lot of people won't use them. They'll just dart across traffic when possible. So the concept we've been looking at here is a lowering of Omaha Street somewhere in the 10-foot vicinity, and then raising 6th Street about maybe 6 to 8 feet, and making so 6th Street passes right over the top of Omaha Street, full width, and it would be an extension of Memorial Park and the promenade to connect into the existing 6th Street. And to facilitate that, we'd end up most likely having to close traffic at 6th in Omaha, because there'd be no way for vehicles to access Omaha due to the grade separation. And that's the concept we're working with, and part of the study will tell us, is this actually feasible? Will this work with our traffic system? Will this work with our bus system? And how this will work for bicycles and pedestrians as well.
Well, not only do we have the Civic Center and promenade idea to work with, but I've taken my grandsons to that wonderful park, and kids don't follow traffic lights all that great, so I think for child safety it's kind of a good idea, because that's one of the best parks in South Dakota, as far as like a playground. So I'd like to see that. When we have large events coming up, I guess I was thinking as I looked at the crowds moving today from Memorial Park, that maybe we could work closely with the police until we get something in place to actually direct traffic in that area to make it safer for pedestrians that are attending events, because our Civic Center will probably be done, I would guess, before this project. So I would like to see maybe more involvement with the police department on helping our pedestrians cross safely when we're having events. And we know when those events are. We know when the big conferences are. We know when the big concerts are. I know that's more of a burden on our police department, but to have them help, getting the pedestrians across that street might be worth our time, and instead, because I don't know when we're going to get this bridge done, if we're going to get it done, and how much it's going to cost.
Neither do we, and that's why we're doing the study.
I get that, but in the meantime, I don't want to put more work on our police, but it might be something we should consider. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now, John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kip, since you're there, do you mind if I ask you a couple of questions?
Certainly.
Were you here in 2008 when Destination Rapid City brought this forward, the pedestrian bridge over Omaha Street?
I was here in 2008, but I was not involved in that effort at all.
Okay, and the only thing that really stood out in my mind about that one was that was just kind of a standard pedestrian bridge, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. But they were estimating in 2008 that it was going to be $1.5 million. So I'm guessing if we're going to lower the road and we're going to, build a bridge over it, we're looking at a very hefty price tag. And, I think this is a good idea. I think it's a really good idea if we had unlimited funds, but unfortunately we don't. So what are we going to sacrifice to do this? That's my only question. This study, since federal government's paying for most of it, I mean, that just comes out of a different pool of tax money. It doesn't come out of, our property taxes and our sales taxes, only the 20% $5,000 of it. But since I've been on the council, we've discussed this, we've talked about this. I think it was a Roger Brooks study, wasn't it, that downtown whatever one where he wanted to close down one lane or all of Main Street, and he wanted to have back-in parking, and he talked about closing off Fifth Street down there, and and I've been through the redoing the intersection there right after we redid it a couple years prior to that because it wasn't good at that time, and I think they did it a couple years prior to that too. I think that this will be the fourth time in the last 12 or 14 years that that intersection has been redone if we do it. I think it's a great idea. I'm not saying it's not a great idea. I'm just saying if we do the study, which either way, we do tons and tons of studies. We shelf 90% of them, but we do lots and lots of studies. And if it says it's going to be $3 or $4 million, where is that $3 or $4 million going to come from? You're looking at lowering the road 10 feet. Okay, what's the water level of Rapid Creek there? 8 feet? So we're going to be a couple of feet underneath the water level of Rapid Creek. What's the water level on Omaha Street? If we dig down 10 feet, we're going to have sump pumps that are going to be pumping water out of that constantly. There's going to be possible failure in the future. I'm just saying, what if the sump pumps fail? What if some car goes flying down there 10 feet down into 6 feet of water? We got to look at the liability side of it. There's just all kinds of issues that I think are relevant on this going into the future. Now, like I said, it would probably be a good idea if we had unlimited funds. Unfortunately, I just don't think we do. In fact, I know we don't. Thank you.
Richie Nordstrom.
Mayor, have you got a motion yet?
No.
If I'd like to make a motion to authorize the mayor and financier to sign the professional services agreement, and then if I get a second, retain the floor.
Okay, we have a motion by Nordstrom, second by Drew. Go ahead.
Thank you. Kip, just to clarify, this is just all concepts right now, so there's nothing set in stone, nothing established at all. It's just a lot of concepts to bring together under one umbrella, if you will.
That is correct. This is a feasibility study to determine whether or not this would actually be possible and what it might look like if it's possible to be constructed. And if we want to touch on funding a little bit, there is a federal opportunity for what's called a build grant, and it's for innovative transportation projects. And that is something that if we determine this is feasible and want to proceed with, that is an avenue we would approach, is applying for what's called a build grant, which is for large projects like this that are innovative, and it's something that we feel we'd have a good shot at getting because there's not a lot of things like this in the area. This would be one of a kind for this whole region, and we think it would be a good applicant for that type of program.
If I can stop you there for a moment, is that I was looking for the date and times that you're proposing public studies. I missed it, I'm sorry. Do you have an idea right now when the public meetings will be starting up?
We do not. We'll work on that with the consultant once they're brought on board, and we will determine the best time for that. We anticipate having 2 or 3 public meetings about this project, and we'll also have stakeholder meetings with a lot of the downtown business owners and the Civic Center, and we will certainly work very, very closely with the South Dakota Department of Transportation on this project.
Thank you. And then one more question for you is that you've held preliminary discussions only, nothing established or anything about this promenade from the Performing Arts to the Civic Center already. You've kind of introduced it to the public, am I correct?
Yeah, it was part of our downtown master plan. It was an idea that came forth out of that, and so we've had a couple preliminary meetings. We did some public outreach last year at Summer Nights and just talking to people and getting a feel for what if people are in support of the concept, and it was overwhelmingly positive. A lot of people like the idea of being able to cross from downtown to Memorial Park and the Civic Center without going across 6 lanes of traffic.
Especially the safety part of it as well. And I know you're looking at other factors as well besides Omaha Street. There was one more question I was going to ask you about the public meetings, but it's gone right now. So so I guess just the emphasis right now is just coming up with concepts and developing and looking at the different ideas that are out there right now. Am I saying that correctly?
Pretty close, yes.
Okay, thank you. I'll yield.
Becky Drury.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I have a couple more questions on the funding. I noticed that this is probably, the $20,000 isn't budgeted. So do we know where that's coming from?
It is budgeted. We do have some funds available for studies in our long-range planning department. So this is, we've looked at the budget and it does fit within our funding.
And then my second question is, how do you budget for something like this? Let's say the study goes through and it's a good idea and the federal government pays 82% of it. How do you budget for the remainder of it if it is a large $3 million project or whatever?
Well, that is something that we definitely are going to have to look at the possibilities for a grant before we do that. And perhaps it'll take us doing an amendment to the budget. If we're unable to put it into the budget year when that grant will come, we'll have to come back and do a supplement budget request so that we can cover that. But there are ways of doing that.
Okay. And then another comment that comes from my chairmate up here is that we would really like to see some more public input for this and maybe even council input for future. With that, I yield. Thank you so much.
Lisa Modrick.
Thank you, Mayor. May I ask Kip a question?
Yes.
Thank you. Kip, we had the walkability study. Was this area included in the walkability study?
As part of the walk audit, the Memorial Park area was covered as part of that, and as the walk audit took a look at different areas in town and how comfortable it was to walk and the types of facilities. And while walking through Memorial Park was taken very well by the walk auditors, the crossing of Omaha they felt was an area of concern, as well as the crossing of 5th Street and the crossing of Mount Rushmore Road. So all those crossings getting across Omaha Street were very uncomfortable for people to cross.
And that was after we had made the current walkable. I know we've advanced the time of walking across, so there's more time now to cross in that 2-lane in each direction. But that was after we've done that, right? That project.
I would have to defer to the South Dakota Department of Transportation because they're the ones that control the signal timing.
So from just what you have on file, how many people cross that street every day?
We do not have pedestrian counts on that street, but if you saw today, there was quite a few people that crossed it today, so much so that we had a police officer manual operating the signal so that people could cross safely.
Which would probably have to happen anyway. And I want to ask you then, if we don't have a count, I mean, even if we push the button, there's nothing that counts that when we're crossing?
The South Dakota Department of Transportation may have that. Again, this is a state highway, so they may have that data, but I don't have access to that.
And is that stoplight South Dakota Department of Transportation, or is that ours?
It is, it's a state highway. It's maintained by the City of Rapid City through an agreement between the city and the State Department of Transportation, but that is a state highway and they have ultimate jurisdiction over that.
And so you're saying that this study would help us know the numbers of what the use is today and then give us a visual of where it's going?
It certainly could, yes.
Or it should, or it will?
It should, yes.
Will is what I'm looking for. I want it to make sure it covers all of our bases when we're putting this kind of funding back. Mayor, I'd like to switch this over to Chief Jegris, if I could.
Yes.
Thank you. I have a little time. I'm just speeding right through this. It's very unusual. I'm not talking. Chief, I wanted to ask you on the safety side, patrol. I'm going to take it a step further. I'm going to take it up first. And that is safety on a bridge or even an underpass. That's unsighted, so you don't have a visual if somebody's on a bridge or sitting on a bridge or under a bridge. So how would the patrol and how would the safety be of anything? This has been talked about now for so long. What would be the plan there, and what do other cities do?
So my understanding, just from being in staff meetings relative to this proposal, is that the visibility would be good. There would be good natural surveillance. There would not be the hidden spots from public view due to the partial elevation and the partial the road going under. So it's much different than anything else that we've ever seen in Rapid City. So I would be very supportive from a safety standpoint for the initial proposal, and I think it would be helpful.
So do you foresee, again, with what other cities have to do when they have pedestrian bridges, some of them even put barbed wire around it to keep people off the bridge, to keep the graffiti from going on the bridges, to keep anything from coming thrown off the bridge or jump off the bridge. I mean, how do we secure that? Because of course we want to have aesthetics with safety in the design, and how would we do that?
My understanding from being in the meetings that I mentioned is that there are solutions available that will be appropriate, and it won't be like razor wire. It will be an enhancement, the gateway from the downtown area to the Civic Center rather than anything negative.
Mm-hmm. I come from razor wire, so I am
California.
concerned about that with bridges. That's why I'm here and not there anymore. And I would want to make sure that that is part of the plan when the study comes through. But when you do some of those things into the project, that's where the costs go up as well. Why do we think that there's going to be an influx of people crossing that way? Is it, are we got a parking plan or a parking ramp plan? What's going to stimulate that crossover?
We're anticipating that with the new arena construction of the Civic Center, that there may be more people parking downtown, going out to dinner, utilizing the downtown amenities, and then just walking over to the Civic Center. And we're just trying to make better connectivity, like you said, or like they said, this is a fantastic park. Memorial Park is great. Downtown Promenade is developing, and we're just trying to make that connectivity between the two.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Greg Stroman.
Thank you, Mayor. May I ask Mr. Harrington a couple questions?
Yes.
So, did I understand you right, sir, that one of the things that the study is going to do is to obtain data on the usage of this crossing?
We did not have that in our initial scope, but that's something we may be able to look at adding into the project.
So it's kind of like a study to see if you need a study?
No, we will certainly work with the consultant on their scope of work and see if that's something they can add in at no additional cost. There may be an opportunity to reallocate some hours in the tasks to determine if we can add those in, a pedestrian count.
Have you given any thought to other alternatives, like a prefab bridge or anything like that?
That is in the design phase so far. Again, this is a feasibility study to determine can we even do a project like this? What exactly it'll look like will come down the road.
And I guess lastly, have you consulted with the DOT?
We have spoken with the region engineer here, who's very much in favor of it, and I've had some preliminary discussions with the Deputy Secretary of the South Dakota Department of Transportation, who also has showed some interest in it and said, you know, as we get through this feasibility study, they'll be working very closely with us, and then they'll give us a lot of input as it goes on.
Okay, and who was that you spoke with at the DOT?
His name is Joel Junt. He's the Deputy Secretary of the Department of Transportation.
And how about the local lead?
His name is Todd Seaman. He's the region engineer.
And is there any data that you have that shows that this crossing as it exists now does not meet any safety criteria or regulations or the manual of uniform traffic control devices, anything like that we're in violation of?
It's not in violation of anything in the manual for uniform traffic control devices. As far as safety goes, I would defer to the chief, as they probably have more crash stats than I have.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Chad Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure I'm going to direct these questions to, I guess I'll start with Mr. Harrington since he's up there. So, Mr. Harrington, the money that's the funding source for from the federal government is, what was the source again? What was it called?
The Metropolitan Planning Organization does transportation planning for Rapid City and the surrounding area. It's federally required for any area with an urbanized population of more than 50,000 people. So we've had an MPO here since the 1980s. So as part of that, we receive federal funding to do transportation planning studies. This comes out of that pot of money. We do things like the Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan, which we're currently updating, our Metropolitan Transportation Plan. Next year we'll be doing our Transit Development Plan to take a look at our bus system and see if there's any improvements we can make there. That's the kind of money that we use and the kind of studies that we do with that money.
So is it fair to say, sir, that this money has already been allocated federally specifically for projects such as this?
Specifically for transportation planning projects. There are no other uses for that money.
So this isn't a case where, Mr. Young pointed out, the federal government would suddenly decide to use this money to fix a pothole federally. I don't know what to do with that. But my point being is this money has already been allocated. It's going to be spent. Rapid City is going to actually receive some of those federal tax dollars as opposed to it going to Sioux Falls or some other region, correct?
Yeah, we get allocated an amount based on our population, so Sioux Falls gets a portion of it, Rapid City gets a portion of it, and Sioux City gets a very small portion of it because their MPO extends slightly into South Dakota. But we get a pretty good chunk of that in Rapid City to spend in our community and the surrounding area. We do things for Meade County, we've done studies for Pennington County as well, and then those communities provide the match for those studies.
So I guess my point being obvious here is that the money's already been allocated, and you and your department have done a great job of making sure that Rapid City gets some of that money spent here to work for us and our community and for our citizens. And I know that everybody that works on these projects like yourself are very diligent, and they are trying to do the best thing for the city. So I really applaud that fact. Obviously, we have a police chief here that is telling us this is probably would be very good for pedestrian safety, public safety. This is not a traditional bridge, as I understand we're talking about doing. We're talking about something that's quite wide, more of an inviting and allows flow to go. You're not narrowing down to like a 10-foot section. You're going across like a half a block wide. Is that correct?
It would be pretty much the width of the existing 6th Street. There's some examples out there. A really good one that's just come out is something called the Gathering Place in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I highly recommend you look at that. They use a similar concept to connect their riverfront to a large park over a 4-lane divided roadway. Again, that road goes kind of down and underneath, and then the park extends over the top of it to make that connection.
So this is basically, I guess my point being here, obviously, is we've done a lot of renovation, or not renovation, revitalization of our downtown area. And this would be kind of one final piece to help tie that area in with the Civic Center, the new arena we're building. This is not money that we're going to come take out of your tax dollars, folks, or tax your house more. This is money that's already out there. It's already been collected, and we are just fighting for our piece of the pie. I appreciate your efforts. I think this is, we haven't actually gone out and built this thing, but if we do, that money's actually available as well. Is that correct?
Again, that would be, we're trying
Possibly.
to determine that,
Yeah.
what the funding source would be. We have some grant opportunities that we're really looking at that we would think we'd have a good shot of getting.
Okay, so like I said, once again, this is not something that's coming out of our sales tax dollars or property tax dollars. This is federally allocated money that's already been out there. We're not stealing from anybody. We're not making you, pay extra money in your tax dollars. So we're just trying to get our fair share of the pie and improve our city and kind of tie in and finish off the Civic Center's expansion with the downtown revitalization and the Performing Arts Center, make a nice promenade, as it were, to just open up our city, make it more inviting to everybody. I really appreciate your efforts. I appreciate your departmental efforts, and I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor for approval. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Have a roll call, please.
Can't even study it.
Lewis. Aye. Lehman. Drury. Evans. Drew. Nordstrom. Modrick. Roberts. Stroman. Armstrong. Tie vote 5-5.
I think the motion fails.
Spend money.
Mayor's unable to break a tie on a vote that would trigger spending of city money. So, okay.
Thank you for your consideration.
Yeah, that takes us through consent. Now on to non-consent items. 45 through 50, we have no public comment forms, so we'll go straight to ordinances, starting with number 45. Second reading of ordinance number 6348 regarding supplemental appropriation number 6 for 2019. Motion to approve Nordstrom. Second by Drew. All in favor of approval of item 45, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 46, first reading, ordinance 6362, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by Renner Associates, LLC, for roadside outdoor advertising, LLC, for a rezoning request from office commercial district to low density residential district 2 for property generally described as being located north of Tower Road. Motion to approve Drury, second by Lehman. All in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. 47, first reading, ordinance number 6355, an ordinance amending Title 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code to exempt small wireless facilities from the definition of microcell wireless communication facilities. Motion to approve by Drew and second by Drury. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now to Public Works Committee items. Number 48, we'll go to Public Works Committee Chair John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 48, a request from Deborah and Harold Steele for council authorization allowing the City of Rapid City to provide water service outside city limits for property located at 2905 Bunker Drive by allowing an exception from the requirement that property adjacent to city limits be required to annex prior to obtaining city water service, with the stipulation that an agreement be drafted between the city and the property owner meeting the requirements of resolution number 2014-092 for non-contiguous properties. And I recommend approving with stipulations.
Second.
Second by Modrick. All in favor of approval of 48, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to community development items, number 49, a request by Centerline for Lazy P6 Land Company for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lot 21 of Block 1 of Gemstone subdivision, generally described as being located east of 5th Street, north of Sandra Lane. Drury makes a motion to approve with stipulations, second by John Roberts. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 50, under bid awards. Award the bid of to Cummins Sales and Service for $28,125 for one stationary 75 kVA natural gas fuel generator and automatic transfer switch opened on September 10th, 2019. Motion to approve, Nordstrom. Second. Second, Modrick. All in favor of approval of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Public hearing items 51 through 59. Again, there are no public speaking requests here, so we'll go to consent public hearing items 51 through 55, which are all alcohol licenses. Would there be a motion from the council?
So moved.
Motion to approve by Armstrong, second by Lewis for the approval of 51 through 55. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 56, under non-consent public hearing items. Second reading, ordinance 6357. An ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by KTM Design Solutions for Yasmin Dream LLC for a rezoning request from medium density residential district to office commercial district for property generally described as being located south of Jaffa Garden Way and west of Elderberry Boulevard. Motion to approve, Drury, second by Modrick. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 57, second reading, ordinance 6358, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by KTM Design Solutions for Yasmin Dream LLC for a rezoning request from general agricultural district to office commercial district for property generally described as being located south of Jaffa Garden Way and west of Elderberry Boulevard. Motion to approve, Nordstrom. Second, Roberts. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 58, second reading, ordinance 6359, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by KTM Design Solutions for Yasmin Dream LLC for a rezoning request from general agricultural district to office commercial district for property generally described as being located south of Jaffa Garden Way and west of Elderberry Boulevard. And is it just me, or do all these sound exactly the same? Okay, we need a, okay, is there a motion on 58? Motion to approve, Lewis, second by Lehman.
I have a comment.
Oh, okay, we'll go to Darla Drew.
I actually have a comment on these. Yes, I did have some questions on these when we last revisited these, worrying about losing some of the agricultural district that was planned in these major developments. I went and discussed this with KTM, and I was assured that we wouldn't be losing a lot. They were just slivers of land. I think you guys might remember this discussion. So I was assured that it wasn't a major part of the agricultural area that was being lost. There would still be plenty of green space. In fact, in some of the areas, there's area for some even wetlands to be available. So I was very happy to hear this. So for all of you that were part of that discussion, you might want to know that they were slivers and nothing to worry about. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor for approval. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 59, second reading ordinance 6360, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by Long Branch Civil Engineering for John Parker and Rob Skull for a rezoning request from Office Commercial District to General Commercial District for property generally described as being located southeast of the intersection of 5th and Parkview Drive, and the recommendation from committee was to approve in conjunction with associated final plan development overlay file number 19 PD 038. Okay, motion to approve with that stipulation or in conjunction by Modrick, second by Roberts. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 60, the bill list, and we'll go to Finance Officer Pauline Sumption.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are no additions to the bill list, so the total is that which is attached at $8,642,564.58.
Motion to approve Roberts, second by Drury. All in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to adjourn Armstrong, second Lehman. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.